Yes, hello and welcome back to the PE Insights podcast, conversations about physical education with me, your host, Nathan Walker, brought to you by the fantastic team at PE Scholar. Today we have a conversation with Will Swaithes from PE Scholar and Catherine Fitzpatrick from Complete PE. And in the conversation we talk about what they think makes a curriculum that will provide positive experiences for all in PE. And we also talk about their recent work with the Oak National Curriculum and the new resources that they're building. Lots to look forward to in this episode. Hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Do look out for my blooper at the end where my audio stops working completely. But the main message from the guests is in there, so I hope you enjoy it. Will, Catherine, welcome to the PE Insights podcast. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Nice to be on, Nathan. Thanks for having us.
Welcome back, Will. As a returning guest, you're very welcome. And Catherine, it's great to see you. So we'll start with what we did, how we start every episode. So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Will, we'll go for you first.
We'll make it really quick. Listen to the last episode and let's not bore people again today. So straight to you, Catherine. Let's get into it.
Go and listen to Will's episode if you want to find out who he is and what he's up to. So straight over to Catherine.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm Catherine Fitzpatrick at the minute. I am the director of PE at Complete PE. So that's kind of been the culmination of, I suppose, everything that I've done in my career to date. So trained as a secondary PE teacher, loved teaching secondary PE, taught for 2 years in a secondary school in the London Borough of Bexley. But during that time, it was around when we had the partnerships, and the SSCO at my school was also my mentor. So really heavily included me in the support that we were giving at the time to our local primary schools. And it was there I just thought, I think this is where I'm meant to be, because there was a lot of work and positive work that I could do, to really help teachers who are asking for our support all the time already. And so that's where it sort of all commenced for me with my journey through primary. So it's about 20-ish years now. I do lose track because I actually also do forget how old I am. But it is about 20 years that I've now worked in the primary space. So a lot of that time started out as PE lead in lots of different primary schools. And then eventually I became the PE advisor in the London Borough of Bexley, specifically focused at advice for primary. And then fast forward to now, we Complete PE came from, I suppose, that time as an advisor where schools ask you for that planning and the resources. And this is great, we're having this training, but when you go, what are we left with? So I started to create sort of an early iteration, if you like, of Complete PE, and then met my colleagues that sort of heavily invested time and effort into the project. And we decided to, as our paths met, it seemed like the right time to start to create something a bit more robust and get all of my ideas online and turn it into the sort of scheme of work and platform of support that it is today. And so for the last sort of 6-7 years, that's been my focus. It is largely still some advisory work, but more sort of through our network at Complete PE. But yeah, that's where my time's been spent. So, and then obviously the other stuff we're going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, and that's a hugely generous contribution to the PE community. And I imagine it took a long time. It talks about 6 or 7 years to get all those resources online. That's no mean feat doing that, is it?
Yeah, I think that's been the focus the last 6-7 years, working on it. We always try to update it, make it better, listen to our member schools and things. I think it probably took me about, if you added up the time I started writing the first versions of the content to when it first went live, that was probably about 11 years.
Wow.
So everything that was initially on there was really tried. It was tested. It was, used and, almost all that sort of initial feedback was given in lots and lots of different settings. So, yeah, we felt it worked for.
Brilliant.
Sorry, Anna.
Well, yeah, I'm in a bit of a privileged position, really, to have what I think I can call a primary PE expert and a secondary PE expert. Will, would you be happy with that?
I'll take that hat. Yep.
Yeah, good. So I've got a question that I want to pose to both of you that you maybe reflect on in terms of from a primary and secondary PE perspective. Then, what are the building blocks for a great PE curriculum?
Yeah, big question.
Big question.
That is a big question. Well, I know you're going to go first.
So we've tried to keep this fairly short in that we've got 6 words we want to talk through. And I guess I'm going to pick up the first one, which is it's got to have purpose. And as you know, Nath, I spent a lot of time prior to COVID, but certainly during COVID and post-COVID, supporting lots of middle leaders and heads of PE, and supporting them to influence their senior leaders as well as to, what is the point in PE? What purpose does it have in your school context? And so that definitely has to come first. That, what if it could give all children one thing, what should it give them? And how is that unique and offering something special in your environment, in your school? What's the hook? What will get all children to go, I want this thing? And from a secondary perspective, I guess I've seen a lot of times, I think I've got the why for PE correct. And then I've got children coming in through the door from lots of different primary feeder schools that have had lots of different experiences there, but also perhaps parents that do or don't love sport and physical activity and making it a big part of their lives. So it's that also, who needs me the most? And of those 11-year-olds, it's very easy to service the ones that are very much like you, that perhaps have parents that really engaged and pushed you out the door to play and kick and jump and run and hide. And recognizing that although they're the easy to reach, they're not the ones that need you the most. So trying to build a purpose around, who your stakeholders are. So I've talked a lot previously about, Simon Sinek's work and start with why, but I actually, myself and Alex Becky talk a bit about, you got to start with a who. And if you understand who your children are and you really listen to them and look at it through their eyes, then perhaps we've got a chance of making a curriculum that's fit for purpose. So, one purpose.
Yeah, I like that. So understanding the who to inform the why is the kind of important message there, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And I think that who piece it really does link nicely into sort of our next one, which is around it being sequenced. So I think if you have a really well sequenced curriculum, you will then deliver the content within that sequence that is going to really support your learners. So understanding where your learners are. So we're saying, going back to that, like, who are they? Where are they on their journey? What part of that sequence is going to be really, really important to challenge them next and not leaving those gaps out. And I think if you can get that sequencing all the way through, yes, you might see, like on our platform and the content that we're going to start to talk about in a minute a bit more, you'll see, this is a year 3 unit, or this is a year 3 lesson, this is a year 6 lesson. Well, actually, it's not. It's just that's that part of that sequence, and your learners will need to sort of access that planning and access that content based on where they are in the sort of e-learning journey, if you like. And that just allows that real flexible approach for schools so they can personalise it. So you're giving a guide, but then obviously it's all about that prior learning as well.
Yeah. I like that, and I think we'll come on to this maybe a bit later, but sequencing, not stopping at year 6 and beginning again at year 7, but the sequence of physical education being a journey throughout the whole thing, which is great.
That's why we got so excited about working together, because we felt like we had a great product in primary with Catherine's complete PE work, and we'd obviously done lots of work with the concept curriculum and various other curriculum frameworks that have largely been physical literacy informed, thanks to Liz, but trying to think that through. But where do you start at the beginning of year 7? And often these different curricula, they use different language, and we're like, how can we join up the language so that it's dead easy for a PE teacher at secondary to pick up a new cohort and go, hey, right, you've not done any gymnastics before, so let's recycle back to year 5 or year 4 or whatever point at which they can get early success and then accelerate them through, rather than going, lesson 1 of year 7 of gymnastics is partner balances or it's floor work, whatever it is.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, so purpose sequence. And the next one we talked about was inclusion, obviously massive through Ofsted's research reviewed, but also high on the agenda for Department for Education, for Education Endowment Foundation, for everyone involved, is how do
Youth Sport Trust Inclusion 2024.
Exactly. How do we make our stuff inclusive, but at its broadest sense? So we're not going, let's think specifically about young people with SEND. Let's think about young people that have had a negative prior experience that perhaps need this from it or are motivated by that. So trying to look at it and go, how do we provide something that's stimulating and exciting and accessible for everybody that steps in. And a lot of that comes down to the language you use, but also we're trying to influence, give the tools and the ideas and the tips to teachers, but really it's them that are going to be able to bring it to life and make it inclusive or not, by not tripping themselves up in different situations.
Yeah. So inclusivity is I had a conversation recently with Simon Scarborough and Dan Hine. It was fascinating about how some people are really championing. Sorry, I can't even speak anymore. Are really celebrating making PE for absolutely everyone and using voice and choice, democratic approaches to just make it this subject that is for everyone. You've often said, Will, that PE is a Marmite subject, and what can we do to make it less Marmite? It's without changing it. Marmite's always going to be Marmite. How can we make Marmite more popular? And that's, bringing people into a conversation, listening to them and making it for everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is something that I'd really buy into as well. Is there any more? So we've got...
Well, we've got 3. The fourth one is then, and again, I think Will, you do talk a lot about this next one. So I won't go into... I don't need to say too much, but that it's got to be holistic. And that's not because being holistic is not important. I think it's just that if, for listeners who listen to your podcast a lot, Nathan, they will have heard people talk a lot about the importance of a holistic approach. And so, I've always been such a sort of fan of how can we ensure we celebrate every single child through every single PE lesson, and really focusing on what success for someone isn't necessarily the same for another child. Every child is so uniquely different, and it really links a lot into the inclusion message we've just given. But having those holistic outcomes, making sure there's opportunities for children to succeed, of course, physically through PE, but their cognitive learning, their social learning, their emotional learning. If we really champion this holistic approach, these life skills, actually what we're teaching children is that, their teacher, who's their hero, is telling them how amazing they've done when they've just tried hard, and they can be resilient, or they've helped someone else and shown respect either in a game, or they've shown empathy to help their partner. These are all life skills we need children to carry with them for the rest of their life. And so, if I'm not the best at passing a ball, or I'm not the best at creating a dance sequence, what about the way that I'm engaging with that learning? What about the value I'm placing on helping others, and my resilience just to want to improve? That's how we're going to get children to just love movement.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like without that, we are not teaching, not almost like without that, we are just absolutely not teaching high quality. So it's not realistic.
And there's a real nod there to physical literacy, isn't there?
Yeah.
And, that underpins a lot of the messages we've given so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're at 4.
Just two more, Nathan. So the fifth one is, it needs to be adaptable and responsive to local context. I guess this ties back to the points I made earlier on purpose. Like the hard thing when you're writing curriculum resources is you're desperately trying to get it well sequenced. And in so many schools, and particularly multi-academy trusts, they're looking for a common curriculum. They're looking for a centralized solution. They're looking for something that they'll absolutely know where all learners have got to by the end of lesson 3 or term 5 or year 4 or key stage 3. And that's like, again, if we dig into the research, that whole idea of flight paths has been rubbish. The whole idea of, non-linear pedagogy, and the fact that, we learn, but also, I'm a big believer in challenging. Learning should be hard, and it's okay to be hard. Like, let's not make it boring. Let's not make it too scripted and too the same and too formulaic. Let's find a way to embrace and get excited by trying to discover something new. Like, that's what hooks me to keep learning. Like, it's why we're really enjoying this project, because we've got some strong philosophies about how we want to build a curriculum. Oaka's got some really strong views about how it wants its curriculum to look. And we're going, how do we bring those together to make something that is pliable, it's clear enough so someone can pick it up quickly and make use of it, because teachers are busy people, right? But at the same time, something that hopefully forces them to do a bit of wrestling and a bit of thinking with it, rather than just reading from somebody else's plan, because that's not what we want to achieve.
No, I don't think it's ever been about that either, is it? Anyone who's designing a curriculum would be maybe foolish to think that someone can pick it up and drop it in their school and it's going to work perfectly. Yeah. So that wrestling, I think, is really important.
Certainly, especially for PE, the conditions, the environment have such an impact, right? So often you'll have been the same. You're in to do a visit with a trainee teacher and they've got a wonderfully planned lesson, and then the weather takes a turn. The department are really kind and they go, oh, you know what, you have the sports hall today because you're being observed. Your tutor's in from university. I want to be dry. We'll deal with the rest. I did one recently that turned what would have been an amazing Gaelic football lesson outside into an indoor disaster because they just tried to translate what would have worked outside into a smaller space and it just didn't work. So again, with years of experience, you figure out, well, what things will work in different environments. When do I talk less because it's cold, or drip in the ideas as we go and build the game, versus let's take some time to sit in the shade away from the sun and really talk through some of these principles, and then you get and do. So
yeah, brilliant. So that's 5.
Is this the final one? Yeah. This is our final one. So we felt it was really important. I think this is, again, how we came to work together on the project we'll speak a bit more about with Oak, that it's tried and tested. So in as much as we're going to adapt it in every setting, and, obviously we're saying it's sequence and schools will pick the parts that, on that learning journey that are going to work for their pupils, the content that we're creating has been tried and tested. Where we're going to be adapting content from ideas we've already got. We might create some tweaks on some of the content side things so it's fresh and new, but at the same time, it all sits. What sits behind it is that tried and tested approach. We know that the curriculum content we've created is making a massive impact in lots of different schools, in primary from our perspective, and in secondary from PE Scholars' perspective, and so. It's just that it's tried and tested, and it's not, let's just throw this out and see if it works. And that can be okay too. But I think when you're trying to design that robust curriculum, knowing that what you're putting into it is definitely going to be something that schools can pick up, start to use, and then begin to make their tweaks if they need to. I think that's really important. So yeah, that was our 6th one, Nathan.
So I guess the kind of final building block then is almost not a building block, but maybe a tool for sort of measurement. If like the 5 before are blocks that build the curriculum, the final thing, the tried and tested thing, is like an evaluative measurement tool. And I'm just being a little bit curious here. You say, we talk about tried and tested. What feedback are you getting that makes you sure that it works? What sort of questions are you asking? Who are you getting that information from over the years? What sort of methods are you using? It's a bit of an off-topic.
No, it's cool.
No, not off-topic, but a tangent question.
Yeah, go complete PE first, Catherine. Buy me some time.
Yeah, okay. Buy you some time. Thanks, Will. We communicate with our schools all the time, and we send out surveys, we ask for feedback, but it's also the fact that we also go in and work with lots of our schools, and we deliver lots of courses and supporting sort of workshops. So we're hearing from our member schools all the time. Everything new we create on the platform, every tweak, sometimes it is a change, is all feedback based on our schools, and and that feedback is invaluable, and we will always try and make sure that everything we do is because that's what's going to work for our schools. And so, as a result, we've got an amazing group of member schools. I think over the years we've pretty much kept the majority of our members, and sometimes when you see members leave you, it's actually just purely from a perspective that there's a trust and we're going to take a different approach. It's not, we really do place a lot of value on that feedback that we get. And I think that's how we know it is making that impact. And schools are brilliant as well at sharing that impact data. So we also ask schools for that impact evidence of the impact it's having on the pupils, the impact it's having on teachers and their confidence and things like that. So, we're pretty happy and pretty confident that we are supporting schools.
Okay. I guess similarly to PE Scholar perspective, I'm really lucky that we've engaged with individual schools or groups of schools that I'm now, into the 8th year of working with, so Lee Sullivan as an example was one of those groups of schools that I'm going back down to in 2 days' time to spend another day with that Heads of PE network, trying to explore and fine-tune and tinker with the stuff that we've been talking about for a long time now. And I think it's that I love the challenge of I bring something to them and we like play with that and try to break it, and then they go away and do a bit more playing in their settings and then come back with problems and we try and fine-tune it further. So yeah, I definitely feel like I don't hugely enjoy big keynote opportunities where I speak for 20 minutes to a room full of people and never see them again. I love the chance to get my hands dirty and roll my sleeves up and get into the detail and the granular stuff with specific schools in specific contexts, because I don't think it's very easy to come up with a solution that fits everybody.
Yeah, great. And I was just thinking, off the top of my head when I posed the question, was if that's the kind of final building block for what makes a great PE curriculum, is what the schools or heads of department need to be asking themselves about their own curriculum that highlights what impact they're having, what sort of questions, what's the data they're getting. And I guess if you've got it's like, what do I need to know to reassure myself that the curriculum I've built with these blocks is working? And it's just that consistent and continuous feedback, isn't it?
Yeah.
So go on.
No, I was just going to say, and I think always the biggest tip for knowing is if something is working in your setting is to just go and watch it and see it in action and see that, that lesson level implementation of what you've planned out, and is that the way you wanted your curriculum to go? But sorry, just adding another point.
That's great. Yeah. So we've kind of throughout that sort of last section of addressing those building blocks, you've made reference to Oak and the project that you've both retrospectively been working on. And so how did the Oak curriculum come about, and why are you doing it from PE Scholar perspective and a complete PE perspective? What initiated it, and why did you buy into it?
Yeah. I think Youth Sport Trust are the matchmakers, if I'm honest. So probably this time a year ago, and again, rewinding even further back than that, Youth Sport Trust was really keen to try and support primary practitioners to make primary PE better, and we're keen to start creating some content. And way back then, instead of locking a couple of members of my team in a room to try to write stuff from scratch that drew on their experiences as physical educators, I was like, that's not the solution, which is when Catherine and the relationship between Youth Sport Trust and Complete PE came about in the first place. And I guess I've only seen that from a distance, but it's been a really successful way to go. Draw on something that already exists. Don't try and start fresh. And similarly at secondary, I guess we've got a number of products and ideas that have really helped at secondary. Like Lee's concept curriculum has been incredibly well received and has helped transform what PE looks like in lots of schools and help give it meaning and relevance in contexts where they kind of fell out of love of sport technique teaching, despite the fact it's very much still teaching through sports and about improved movement competence. But yeah, it basically came about because Youth Sport Trust had been involved in this during COVID. So Oak, obviously, for anyone listening that isn't aware, they were kind of a rapid response set up during COVID to home learning. A couple of multi-academy trust kind of CEOs got together and went, we should create something for our schools. And the DFE very quickly picked up and went, we should have done that. That sounds great. How could we enable it to be rolled out to all schools for free so that children can access learning at home? And at that point, the Association for PE and Youth Sport Trust worked together to create some physical activity tasks to be done at home. But we're very clear that isn't physical education. And then we fast forward a few years down the line, and teachers are really busy. Recruitment and retention is hard. Getting specialists is tricky. So unsurprisingly, I think to me, the Oak website was still getting a lot of hits. And as a consequence, they went back to the DFE and went, look, what we created is clearly still being used, but it's not fit for purpose anymore. What we created was for home learning, and now it's being used by teachers in a school setting. And
Yeah.
Like, why don't you fund us to make it fit for purpose in that environment? So that's when the opportunity came up. They were looking for curriculum partners for every subject area. And when the PE one came up, we were kind of like, well, IS2 went, you've done some really exciting stuff at secondary. You've got tried and tested and working at primary. And it'd be really nice if it worked all the way through and it had a common language. And I guess Catherine and I sat down and went, well, if we don't do this, who will? And like our ambition has always been, how can we help PE be better? And hopefully this is one way that it can reach the mass market. Like, it's going to be free. It's going to be open government license, completely downloadable, change it, make it fit your purpose and your school. But yeah, so what have I missed, Catherine?
No, I think that's right. And I think, we've been asked a lot, why are you doing that? Because you already have all your resources there in place. Like, why would you do this project? And it's, I think it's just so important that we can ensure that schools have got access to the very best resources. And we felt that we could produce really high quality resources. We know we can produce high quality resources, and we felt we could do it for this project as well. And obviously, now we are the people creating this content. I think that we see it that this isn't going to be as significant in volume to the resources we would have on, say, our platform. We have training and there's assessment, SEN support. There's a lot more to that support that you would get in a complete package, if you like. This will be that curriculum planning and those lesson plans and units of work that will really support. I think particularly when Will and I have chatted about who will use this. I mean, it could be used by anybody, but I think it's going to be invaluable to, early careers teachers. I think it's going to be invaluable to schools who have nothing in place at the moment. And it's going to give them that really valuable starting point. And then obviously, as schools grow in their ambition of what they want to do and they like the feel of the content on Oak, then there are opportunities to extend that provision, opportunities to extend that offer. And obviously, we know that we've got solutions that will expand on that as well. So it just seemed to work really nicely.
Was there any trepidation when you kind of said light, because obviously it's quite a big scale project, isn't it?
Mainly legally, like, it is an enormous undertaking to have a central government funded contract, and it cost a lot in legal fees just to explore whether it was A, possible, and B, desirable. And that's before you get onto like the business sense bit. Like, both businesses have been doing really, really well. And did we need this project? No. But did we want, do our businesses exist to try and help PE be better for all children and teachers to be more confident and happy delivering great lessons? Yes. So it feels like, to one extent, a no-brainer of so let's dig in and do this. And it also has enabled us to expand the team. So we've employed 9 amazing content creators. I think we did the maths, and it's about getting on for 200 years worth of experience of teaching in our classroom, right? Whether that's the sports field or the gym or the swimming pool. And just bringing those brains together has been great and a really enjoyable thing. But for a lot of them, it's then almost relearning, well, I know how I plan for me with my years of experience of delivering this or to that year group or with these aims in mind. But now I've got to structure it in a way that fits the Oak way. And that's been fascinating the last kind of 6 months.
So that, we're kind of going to go backwards to go forwards in terms of the chat here. So what have you done to bring the Oak curriculum to life then? And how are you going about that? What have you had to do to take what already existed and was tried and tested, like we said, to then make it fit Oak's sort of vision for curriculum?
A lot of our time, Will, over the last sort of year or so. I think partly that links to sort of the amount of content that we're creating for Oak. So I think one of the biggest challenges, obviously, we understand, we've already gone into detail what we would expect would would constitute a high quality curriculum. They're really important, all those important attributes. But actually one of the hardest things was deciding what content are we actually going to create, because there's a set quota of content that we have been asked to create and contracted to create. So we are, I suppose, limited in the amount of units of work and lessons that we could create. So that was probably one of the hardest challenges, was to work out what should we create to make sure it is broad, it is balanced, but obviously being very mindful that, if a school's going to use this curriculum content, they would pretty much have to use all of it without choice. And you would probably want schools, hence where we sort of mentioned before who it would be sort of for, is it could be a good supplement to the curriculum, but it's going to be great for people to pick up and take isolated parts. But Will, would you agree? I think that was one of the hardest things, was making sure we've got that broad balanced coverage within a limited amount of content that we're creating.
Do we leave that? Absolutely. And I guess have we been lucky? I don't know. But Hannah Packer, who's the PE subject lead at Oak, has been amazing. Like, she is an expert herself, but a real asset to help us influence the internal team at Oak. That, when we started, it was a given that we were going to write a slide deck for every PE lesson, because that's the Oak way. There's slides for every lesson. And if it worked for every other subject, why would we not do that for PE? And we felt so strongly that if we create slides for core PE lessons, particularly at primary, but actually at secondary too, I've been into so many departments where, they've decided that they're going to really impress with the declarative and procedural knowledge shared on a couple of slides, or this knowledge organizer, and sit in front of the board at the beginning of the lesson. And I'm like, what's going on in our world to think that that's what will make PE better? Like, our USP is that the kids are moving, right? So that was like day one, a big battle. And, again, the team at Oak, the senior leadership team, as well as Hannah, really understood where we were coming from, but they really believe in evidence-informed. And it's like, well, you got to put your case forward, and then we're going to put it out to testing, and we're going to hear what teachers are saying. And it previously existed with slides, because teachers were saying, we want slides. And we were going, well, they might want slides, but will slides make physical education better? So we're really pleased that we've got to a point where there are no slides for any practical lessons. And don't get me wrong, the slide deck and the template and the way that works for GCSE PE is incredible. Like, it's a really nice formulaic way and flow through a lesson, like perhaps not as much exploration and discovery as I would like, but that's in the power of the teacher, right? They can pick this up. This is they're 80% done, and now they can do the fine tuning to make it suit their personality and work for their class. And the other thing I massively bought into with Oak was they have this lovely analogy about a cup of tea. Like, they'd like to be a tea bag in the cupboard in the staff room that every teacher knows they can lift out, they can chuck it in a cup, and they're going to make a fairly decent cup of tea lesson from it. But it's down to them to decide what mug to put it in, what milk to pour on, how long to brew it for, whether they need sugar or not. And so that ethos is really there with Oak, of going, we want to make some stuff that's great and it's free, but we also really want teachers to know that, and that's also been a challenge in making it. Like, everything we've made has had to be editable within the resources, the illustrations and the videos and the great stuff that Catherine's got to complete PE. We're like, well, we've got to do all that again, because it has to be fully editable by the end user teacher if they don't want to teach that thing in that lesson or lay it out quite like that.
Yeah, and that's a big undertaking as well. So I guess there's maybe a question which is worthwhile asking. So what is, you've talked about that you've had to make some changes. So what are the similarities between your existing content and the differences between the new Oak content from both your perspectives?
Do you want me to start, Will? Okay. Well, yeah, I think obviously, for both the content that we have at Complete PE, that PE Scholar have, and then Oak, again, as Will said, it would be content that you would still want teachers to make their own in their setting and in their school. But One big thing that's definitely similar is the fact that the resources are going to specifically reference ways that you can adapt the activities. And this will be not so much of so I suppose there's a similarity and a difference. So Complete PE, we have our sort of learning cards where you'll adapt each activity. It will give you a suggestion of how you can take that challenge back a step if children need a bit more support, and how you can extend that challenge if we really want to move them on. Mm-hmm. And we brought that level of adapt into the planning at Oak. So there'll be a suggestion to the teacher as to how you could take this sort of activity, this task that we're trying to really bring that learning to life through, back a step to help that learner to really engage with that activity and support them more, and then how we can make it more challenging. Mm-hmm. I suppose then the difference is, we've spent a long time now turning Complete PE into a fully inclusive resource. So every part of every plan has an SEND adaptation resource that sits with it that will give you ways to support children if they have sensory needs or cognition and learning, physical. We've really gone into quite some depth at that, and that's not quite fully finished even yet, and that's been years in production. So obviously that's something at the moment we couldn't do with this Oak resource, purely from a time perspective and also within the remit of what we were challenged to do. So I guess that gives you a similarity and a difference in one.
And I guess that's part of the teacher's, job when we talk about wrestling and making it fit. It's knowing the learners in front of them to be able to make those adaptations for learners with, special educational needs.
Yeah.
Will, what's the difference between PE Scholar resources?
Well, I guess people, again, that have heard me talk before, I very often, we mentioned the holistic thing earlier, so we frame stuff I have previously in having an ask in every lesson, and the A stands for an attitudinal target, the S for a skill, and it could be a sporting skill or a social skill or a intrapersonal skill, and then the K for knowledge, and again, that might be related to the activity they're doing, or it might be related to, broader health and well-being or whatever, and that then, I guess, translated within the concept curriculum, and certainly because at that moment in time, Ofsted were really keen on this idea of, children need to know more and show more, and we added that extra layer of and help them grow, because we passionately believe that PE is a great space to help children be better humans, and PE and sport are great vehicles to enhance life in terms of how happy we are, how employable we are, but also how connected we are. So I guess we've always talked about ways to do it holistically, and both myself, Catherine, and also Liz were heavily involved in Sport England's consensus statement work and their expert body around physical literacy. So that had gone live just before we submitted this, and we kind of were we know it has to very much hit, it's DFE funded, so it very much has to hit the national curriculum. That's its remit, is satisfy the national curriculum. And I think we've perhaps taken the concept curriculum way over here for people that want to go beyond that. And, we're in the middle of a curriculum and assessment review, and let's hope that paints a path a lot further in that direction.
Yeah.
But we had to build something that very much the foundations and the common language was around the national curriculum that was written in 2012 or enforced since 2012. But we also were mindful of this new body of work and this exciting groundswell around the idea of physical literacy. So we embedded the language of move, think, feel, connect. It would have been really easy. Oak have this idea of threads. So in every subject area, you can select a number of threads that are your big ideas that run, I guess, through your curriculum. And it would have been dead easy for us to go, we'll have a thread on invasion games, and we'll have a thread on outdoor adventurous activities and a thread on dance. But we're if we want to challenge practice and try to progress things in the profession, let's put those words in the title of the unit. So if you're looking for athletics or OAA or dance, you can type that into the search. It'll find all the units that include that word. Or football, if that's the vehicle you want to use, you can find content for it. But actually, if you want to look at it slightly differently and build it through a focus that is physical literacy informed, that is about not just moving better and understanding how and why to move better, but also feeling a sense of satisfaction and enjoyment and, as you know, a bit of belonging in that space. Like, again, I think PE is a space where quite often children feel like they're at home or it's not their place. And we want to try and help challenge that and go, like, PE's for everyone. It should be the place where everyone feels at home and happy. And then, so many other subject areas have got so much content they've got to deliver against in that pathway to exams that we felt like PE has the luxury of being able to go, you know what? Children need to be more sociable. They need to be more believing in themselves. So let's build some of those. They're not very tangible, but let's try and make them tangible so that it increases the emphasis that teachers put on them.
Yeah. So do you think it's more of like a stepping stone in the middle of maybe an maybe potentially abstract ideas of conceptual curriculum design, and then maybe what David Kirk would call the multi-activity PE as sport technique model is somewhere in the middle that's trying to bring things together?
I affectionately call it the mass market nudge. I genuinely think that it's so recognisable to the mass market that they would be able to pick it up and do it, but it is nudging them in a healthy and, I believe, meta direction.
And that equals supporting tool, isn't it, as well? It's that first, could be for some people, that first time they've seen that there should be an emphasis placed on, you know, the connect, those social skills and the feel, those emotional skills, like that. This is what we're trying to do here. So, Will coined the explanation that sort of describes what we're doing. I think that's exactly it. It's just trying to make sure that teachers are constantly reminded how important back to it, those holistic outcomes are, and by being able to, you know, really draw on that physical literacy informed approach, it's just really helping to bring that to life.
And I think I often go out into schools in our areas, a part of my role, and I see departments that are working towards implementing maybe a concept curriculum, and the interpretation of it hasn't quite worked. So this might help them allow it to make a little bit more sense if it's drawing links to maybe a bit more, I don't want to use the word traditional, but maybe a familiar style of PE curriculum design. It might help them kind of materialize it in their context. So it's a nice sort of stepping stone as well.
I think for me, the mine, and Nathan, is, sorry to interrupt you, is like if you're going from in fact, I'm not sure much of PE is still black and white, but let's say it's colour, but it's 24-bit colour. And if you're going from that and you want to go to a full HD,
LED,
like, you don't jump straight there, do you? Like, you take steps in that direction. And actually, like, that's a really healthy thing to do, like have a plan to move in that direction and take small steps that make a big difference rather than some huge leap that just feels... human nature is you want to stay in your comfort zone. So I want 80% of my practice to feel like it felt last week, because then I'm comfortable and I'm not too anxious and I know what I'm doing. And again, that's why we struggle with our trainees. Like, they're trying to find themselves in environments where, from school to school, but the expectations on them are very different compared to the school they grew up with, compared with what we're trying to, entice them towards as a degree.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that socialization, it's interesting body work, isn't it? So we kind of come to the point where we thought we would like to kind of summarize what Oak is there for and what PES or PE Scholar and Complete PE are there for. How would you kind of summarize that?
So my view is that the Oak resource is brilliant and it's working across every subject area. If we just take one of the big challenges I've had supporting schools in the last 10 years is trying to make sense of assessment without levels within PE. And they want to build something bespoke that works for PE. It's got to work within the framework that their school has embedded by their data manager about tracking performance and progress and learning. And sometimes that round peg doesn't fit in that square hole. And so I think the one thing that's great is we have been required to fit with the Oak mold. Like, we've made a couple of adaptations to it, like no slides, like demonstration videos for all of the practical, because, if a picture paints 1,000 words, then a video clip of children performing the thing will be 1,000,000 words, right?
It's a novel, yeah.
We've made some tweaks that I think will make it better, but because 90% of it sits, well, in fact, all of it has to abide by 600 standards, 600 Oak standards. So Catherine and I spent most of today and lots of our days supporting our content creators to Oakify their language and the way we present things. But that just means that hopefully the end user won't really be able to tell whether it was me wrote it, Catherine wrote it, or someone else in the team. But also if that is a primary generalist who's also teaching and utilising the resources for art and for music and for English and for the maths, it looks and feels familiar, so they can quickly pick up and do something with it. So I think that makes it easy. It makes it quite a quick pickup. And I guess what's different is the thing that certainly at PE Scholar that we pride ourselves on is really trying to doing that next step of it, the personalising. So maybe this becomes the starting point for lots of schools, and then it's how do we help you personalise that and build the skills of your team to be able to implement and deliver that stuff, but also to design more of yourself, for yourself that fits all goes with it. And maybe it's about the pedagogy, maybe it's about how you assess against these things that is that where next for people.
Yeah. So it's like the canvas that they can paint their own picture on essentially from there on. Yeah. Sorry,
No, not at all. And it's just that would be the same, message for what Complete PE's place. It's the same, if you've got this great Oak curriculum that's going to give you that start point, people can dip in and out, supplement what they've already got, start to use all of it. I think then, we would sit in a place where schools can use our resources and they will be able to create bespoke, personalised curriculums. There's a significant amount of choice available because we want schools to pick the units and the content that's going to work for their setting. But then it's that assessment piece and that CPD and all the other resources that go with that are adaptive PE resources. It really just helps to bring in that personalised approach so schools can delve deeper into creating that more personal but robust curriculum in their individual settings as well. So I think it aligns in a very similar way.
Brilliant. I think it's fascinating to get an insight around how such a massive project at sort of like government education level is undertaken and the work you've gone through and your kind of visions for it. So thanks for sharing that. And hopefully by the time that this episode goes live, there'll be some resources that people will be able to go and have a look at to see kind of what this looks like and how it comes alive.
Yeah, and Oak are big believers in the iterative process. Like we've not said that word for a while, have we, Catherine? But after 6 months, we're very much create something, test it, refine it. Let's try and move it further into the direction of what we think is of most value for children. Like, yes, for teacher, but actually for children to have positive experiences in PE. And that iterative process will continue. So as soon as stuff goes live, we're on an open loop of feedback from teachers that will lead to us modifying the stuff that we do. Like we have some ideas around what we think some of that feedback will be. So some initial testing has happened. Then the stuff will start to go live. Then continual feedback will lead us to probably spend next summer holidays making some changes that, the market has proven that some of which we are predicting and others that we don't know of yet, but then just to make it even better.
Yeah. And I guess that next level of feedback is even more organic and authentic, isn't it? Because it's, the feedback from like right now is from small samples or people that are designing it and trialing with it. But when it goes out there to everyone to use, the feedback becomes a little bit more maybe raw and authentic and has more value, I guess. So, right. I think what we'll do is we'll fly into the quick fire questions now just to wrap up the episode. These are the questions that we go through all the guests, and I'm going to give you both the opportunity to answer. So I'll pick someone at random to go first. The first one is your 3 non-negotiables for positive experiences for all in PE. We'll start with Catherine.
Okay. No particular order. Okay, number 1, if we're going to create a positive experience, obviously we want our pupils to be engaged, but the the teacher has got to be engaged. So I start with that one from a primary, more of a primary hat on here. We have, obviously, many teachers delivering PE lessons every single day who do not feel confident.
Yeah.
And I completely empathise with why they don't feel confident. I understand it. It takes a lot of training and a lot of support to get to that place if you're delivering a subject that you haven't had a lot of support in already, to feel confident delivering that. But I feel like if we can just really engage in buying into the fact that the more fun we have with our lesson, the more inspiring we're going to be to our children. They don't know that you don't feel confident. They don't know that you really don't feel that you know what you're talking about. But they will if you tell them that through your negative body language. They will if you are really coming out there like really not wanting to be there. So there's so much power in just as that teacher, if you are listening to someone who doesn't feel confident with what you're doing, your children don't need to know that. And we're giving you now, hopefully, access to stuff really quickly to give you resources to build that confidence, give you the tools, to build that confidence, but just engaging it yourself. So that's my first one. My second one is comes back to that holistic approach. We just celebrate everything. Just celebrate everything that your children do. Place such immense value on how hard they try. That real integrity to want to do their best, want to succeed, and just all those life skills we've already touched on already. If you celebrate in your PE lessons, the easier it's going to become to really, get that buy-in from all of your pupils.
I love how effective the main growth mindset, praising and celebrating effort and attitude is absolutely non-negotiable of mine as well. So I'm glad you said that. No,
definitely. I think the last one, Will, you already mentioned this at the start, but it's got to have a purpose. So I think, again, I'm really privileged. I get to spend a lot of my time working with primary teachers, primary PE leaders in their schools. And it's always from a place of support. We're not there to judge or inspect. But I think a lot of the time, if you are asked to watch some lessons first so that you can really gauge where that teacher is in their practice and how to best support them, a lot of the time you do see lessons being taught, and really, I should say, sessions being facilitated where we've lacked purpose. We're doing lots of activities and the children, it's brilliant that they're engaged and having a great time, but we're not really learning anything. And it's simply just because we missed embedding that purpose. So it's also just, asking ourselves, what are we teaching? Why are we teaching that? And the children, tell them what you're about to teach them and what they're about to learn and why are they actually learning that? What's the point of even doing this today? So just really simply thinking about your purpose.
I love that. And it's almost semantics, but there's so much power between lessons being taught and sessions being facilitated. It's really powerful. Thanks, Catherine. Will, you're free?
So I'm trying to make them memorable. I'm going with the 3 L's. So the first L, this is new, like less is more. I think as a profession, as physical educators, we're so busy trying to prove that we deserve a seat at the grown-up table, like not just kicking balls and running around. Like we're serious people and they care about children and we're educating them in meaningful things. And I think sometimes we spend so much time trying to fight that corner. We try to cram everything and convince people that our curriculum does everything. And I think sometimes less is more. Like I think keep it simple and do less things, but incredibly well. I think I'm also a big believer in like live it, don't laminate it. Like we can put great stuff in our handbooks. We can, I know so many middle leaders that have literally sunk what in our world would be the equivalent of a doctorate into their curriculum handbook or into their sequences of learning or into their, their units of work and their schemes of work. And I'm like, thankfully, I hope they can pick up this oak stuff and go, well, you know what? Some of that heavy lifting has been done for me. But what really matters is not that every document looks the same and is, is formatted right and all the rest of it. Some of that little stuff that doesn't make much difference, but you can invest time and energy in enacting it, bringing it to life. Yeah. And that's the stuff that matters more. Like I do some really exciting tasks with people in training. They're always making a note of them and very quick to share some of the branded stuff they've done back me. I love it, but I then am really excited about getting into the school to seeing if they're loving it. And then the third L is we need to look at everything that we do through different lenses. So it's really easy for me to look at everything through the lens of someone that had a positive PE experience at school, that had parents that were supportive of sport, that was privileged to be able to, take part in clubs, fixtures, county, regional, get moved about to stuff. I even went on skiing trips as a kid. That was the one trip that my dad really believed in and would leave work for. But I think, I would love every PE department to have someone in it that hated PE when they were at school, because we've got to be helped to see what it looks like to the rest, because not everyone looks at the world the way I look at it.
Yeah, fascinating. Thanks for sharing, Will. I do think I'm going to change the name of this question section from quickfire questions, because when you ask 3 non-negotiables for high quality and positive experience of PE, they're not quick answers, but both fascinating answers. Before we move on to the 2 really quickfire questions, then we'll do the controversial question first, if that's all right. So a controversial question here, but if you could remove one thing or something from physical education, curriculum or provision, what would you remove? So, Catherine.
I'm going first. I'm jumping in.
You're going to go first? All right, go on in.
I don't care. You just heard from me and I want to go again. Sorry.
Hogging the mic.
Right. Ditch the timetable. I feel really passionately about this. Like, for some reason, and this is broader than PA, like it's a whole education problem, because we're faced with large cohorts turning up at the school doors at 8:30 or whatever that time is, and we've got them until 3:15, and somehow we've got to sort them into something that is recognizable and dealable with. But that kind of single seat model where we're going, let's divide them by age, and then unfortunately in PE still an awful lot of, and then after that we'll divvy them up by gender and then by ability, and thankfully we're seeing a lot less of that now. But we're still seeing divvy it up by 1 hour periods or 50-minute periods, or maybe some schools have doubles. And I'm like, let's get with the fact that technology can do an awful lot for us, and let's get creative. Like for me, the job of a school is to help parents bring up their children. It's to help socialize. It's to, we got to give them the things that technology and their smartphones in their pockets can't give them. I'd like to ditch the timetable so that we can, and don't get me wrong, I got a few friends that do timetabling for big comprehensive schools. That'll be a nightmare. But it'd be lovely if, young people were signing up to modules of things that they're fascinated in, and to learn in blocks of time that mean that they can delve deep and enjoy learning again, rather than being spoon-fed for an exam that is so different to the life that they'll have after school. So that's my wish.
Great. And there's some really good examples of alternative provision settings doing that quite well.
Yeah.
It
works.
But there's more flexibility. Fascinating. Catherine?
Yeah, so I'm going to break the rule and give you something rather than something to take away, something I think we need to have more of.
Go on then.
And if that's all right. Yeah. And that's just simply to have more PE. Like, we have the most powerful, most important subject. I am going to say that. I believe it's so, so true. We have the only subject that has the power to, increase a pupil's capacity to learn, because the impact it has on the brain. We have the only subject that can really make that significant impact on the teaching of pupils' different life skills. And I don't need to go into why PE is so important. I just think we need more of it. And I think that the impact in schools, if you had more PE, would be so significant that I think we'd have a lot of leaders in education sitting back thinking, why didn't we do that sooner? Yeah. And I have seen it happen in a few schools who do teach more than the recommended amount, and a couple that teach a lot more. And the difference it makes is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Huge. I think I went into a school recently that are doing 3 hours a week in secondary of physical education, and the final, so they have 2 hours of their normal or existing curriculum PE, but their third hour a week, the students get to choose what area of learning they've had that week and what they're going to focus on in that third lesson. And it's this kind of change perspectives of PE in that school it's amazing. I I think a paper that both Will and I might have read by Mikhail Kvenestedt put it quite nicely that the main aim for physical education is more physical education. And, that's places coming from Scandinavia, for example, where they're feeling the same. And I think it's a message that we should really be shouting as loud as we can. Okay. So if you had a mantra, what would your mantra be, Will?
Apologies, I said this last time, but to do well, you need to be well. Like, I'm a big believer in if we want children to do well, they need to be more well. And that ties into Catherine's point of 2 hours a week isn't enough to be more well and to be more happy. But also for teachers, like if as teachers we want to do well, teach well, we need to look after our self-care and our well-being first. Like, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Like it. Catherine?
Okay. I'm going to quote somebody, if that's okay. I'm breaking all the rules of how I'm going to answer these questions too. I'm sorry.
Interpretation is the best thing about it.
And there you go. Oh, yeah. I've interpreted it in my own way. So I'm going to quote Alan Turing. And I just was blown away when, watched the film but just when you listen to one of his quotes where we talk about, sometimes it's the people that no one can imagine anything of that do the things that no one can imagine. And that links a lot to everything we've already spoken about around celebrating everything. Celebrate your children, get them to absolutely adore what they do. And again, evidence in how long I've been teaching now, how old I am. I've now got some of the students I first taught in secondary who are 30-something now, when they were in year 7. And from having that approach with let's just celebrate everything, making PE so positive, I won't name them, but there's 2 of that first cohort I worked with that have gone on and done some things in the sporting world that you'd never have imagined they would do that. And that came from that positive approach that you can do anything you want to do. And I'm going to celebrate you just for you trying hard. And they don't work in the fact they're not in the sense they're elite performers, but they're working very high level in the sporting sector. And that's all come from having that love that might not have been naturally there, but we managed to get that there through PE. So, don't write children off, make it positive because they are going to surprise you if you do that. So.
I love that. Brilliant. Final question then. In one word, or if you're Catherine and you're going to flip this up his head again.
Now we can break your here as well.
What should PE feel like for pupils?
I'm not breaking the rules. Fun. Done.
And Will has gone first, and we discussed who would go first here before, and he's stolen mine. So I'm going to say that it's got to be the best part of their week. There's no excuse for that. The PE should be the best part of every pupil's week.
Brilliant.
Multiple times in the week, hopefully, as well.
That was definitely more than one word, but a powerful way to finish. Thanks both for spending just over an hour with me this afternoon to talk about what makes a great PE curriculum, what led you into the Oak Project, a lot of your philosophy and beliefs and values around PE.
Well, it was at this point where my audio decided to stop working completely. So just putting a filler in here, and I'd like to take this time again to thank Will and Catherine for coming on and having a conversation about their work that they've been doing with Oak and, more importantly, what they believe makes a fantastic PE curriculum. So thank you once again. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I do apologise for my audio dropping out at the end. Hope you'll join us for the next episode coming next week, and we'll speak to you again soon.